on Savitri by Sri Aurobindo, page 6. I can never be certain of newly written stuff, in this Savitri, until I have looked at it again after an interval. Apart from the quality of new lines, there is the combination with others in the whole, which I have modified more than anything else in my past revisions. Allow me to point out that whatever I did in a jiffy would not be any more than provisionally final. It is not a question of making a few things in the individual lines. That is a very minor problem. The real finality only comes when all is felt as a perfect whole, no lines erring with or falling away from the other level of the whole, or though some may rise above it and also the parts of in their proper place, making the right harmony. It is not a question of making a few changes in individual lines. That is a very minor problem. The real finality only comes when all is felt as a perfect whole, no lines erring with or falling away from the level of the whole, though some may rise above it and also all the parts in their proper place, makes the right harmony. It is an inner feeling that has to decide that. Unfortunately, the mind can't arrange these things. One has to wait till the absolutely right thing comes in, a sort of receptive self-opening and calming down condition. Hence the months 1936. Sri Aurobindo says, I have done an enormous amount of work with Savitri. The third section has been recast, not rewritten, so as to give it a more consistent epic swing and amplitude and elevation of level. The fourth section, the worlds, is undergoing transformation. The life part is in a way finished, though I shall have to go over the ground perhaps some 5 or 6 times more to ensure perfection of detail. I am now starting a recasting of the mind part, of which I had only made a sort of basic rough draft. I hope that this time the work will stand as more final and definite. I have been kept too occupied with other things to make much headway with the poem, except that I have spoiled your beautiful, neat copy of the worlds under the auspices of the restless urge for more and more perfection. But we are here for the world improvement, so I hope that is excusable. 1938. Sri Aurobindo says, I have not been able to make any headway with Savitri owing to the lack of time and also to an appealed perception of the disgraceful imperfection of all sections after the first 2. But I have tackled them again, as I think I wrote to you, and have pulled up the third section to a higher consistency of level, the worlds. The worlds have fallen into a state of manuscript chaos, corrections upon corrections, additions upon additions, rearrangements out of which perhaps some cosmic beauty will emerge. 1938. Sri Aurobindo says, you will see when you get the full typescript of the first 3 books that Savitri has grown to an enormous length, so that it is no longer quite the same thing as the poem you saw them. There are now 3 books in the first part. The first part, the Book of Beginnings, comprises 5 cantos, which cover the same ground as you typed, but contains also much more that is new. The small passage between Ashwapati and the other worlds has been replaced by a new book, the Book of the Traveller of the Worlds, in 14 cantos with many thousand lines. There is also a third, sufficiently long book, the Book of the Divine Mother. Sri Aurobindo says, in the new plan of the poem, there is a second part consisting of 5 books. 2 of these, the Book of the Birth and Quest and the Book of Love, have been completed, and another, the Book of Fate, is almost complete. 2 others, the Book of Yoga and the Book of Death, have still to be written, though a part needs only a thorough recasting. Finally, says Sri Aurobindo, finally, there is the third part consisting of 4 books: the Book of Eternal Night, the Book of Dual Twilight, the Book of Everlasting Day, and the Return to Earth, which have to be entirely recast, and the third of them largely rewritten. So it will take a long time before Savitri is complete. In the new form, it will be a sort of poetic philosophy of the spirit of life, much profounder in its substance and vaster in its scope than was intended in the original poem. I am trying, of course, to keep it at a very high level of inspiration, but in so large a plan covering most objects of the philosophical thought and vision and many aspects of spiritual experience, there is bound to be much variation of tone, but that is, I think, necessary for the richness and completeness of the treatment. Sri Aurobindo says, I am not at all times impervious to criticism. I have accepted some of yours and changed my lines accordingly. I have also, though not often, accepted some adverse criticism from outside and remolded a line or a passage from the poem here and there. But your criticism are based upon an understanding, appreciation of the poem, its aim, meaning, method, the turn and quality of its language and verse technique. In your friend's judgment, I find an entire absence of any such understanding, and accordingly I find his criticism to be irrelevant and invalid. What one does not understand or perceive is its meaning and spirit. One cannot fruitfully criticize. 1947. Sri Aurobindo says, I am afraid I am too much preoccupied with the constant clashes with the world and the devil to write anything at length, even about the new poems, the adventure of the apocalypse. A few lines must suffice. In fact, as I had to explain the other day to Dilip, my only other regular correspondent, my push to write letters or to new literary production has dwindled almost to zero. This, apart from Savitri, and even Savitri has very much slowed down, and I am only making the last revisions of the first part, already completed. The other 2 parts are just in cold storage. 1948.
संगसुत्वस्त्रिगुणविवहितो वस्तमोहन्धकारं नासागरन्दे गङ्गाधरं शङ्करं वन्दे नेत्रोऽध्यवैश्वानरं वन्दे त्रैलोक्यसारं श्रीपार्वतीवल्लभं वन्दे Bye.